Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today we'll be starting off with verse 71 of Surah Anam, which is the sixth surah of the Quran. We have discussed this earlier on that this is the first surah of the second chapter of the Quran. The second chapter begins with surah number 6 and ends on surah number 9. In this particular surah, the Quraysh are addressed specially, who is, of course, the tribe and the clan of the Prophet, and misconceptions regarding polytheism especially have been dispelled, and we find that this whole surah is a composite sermon regarding the basic precepts of Tawheed and Risala and Akhira, and all these important discussions are done in a way that the Quraysh are ultimately left with no excuse. So, starting off with verse 71, the words are قُلْ أَنَدْعُو مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُنَا وَلَا يَضُرُّنَا وَنُرَدُّ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَانَا اللَّهُ كَالَّذِي اسْتَهْوَتْهُ الشَّيَاطِينُ فِي الْأَرْضِ حَيْرَانٌ لَهُ أَصْحَابٌ يَدْعُونَهُ إِلَى الْهُدَىٰ ائْتِنَا قُلْ إِنَّ هُدَى اللَّهِ هُوَ الْهُدَىٰ وَأُمِرْنَا لِنُسْلِمَ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Ask them, ask them, should we call on those besides God who can neither benefit nor harm us? And should we turn upon our heels even after God has guided us, like him who is left perplexed in the desert by the devils, even though his companions call him to the right path? Come to us. Say, in reality, God's guidance is the real guidance, and we have been directed to submit to the Lord of the worlds. So obviously, the particle of negation that you can see, God, which can neither benefit nor harm us, it is a form of humiliation. And when it is said, and should we turn upon our heels, even though after God has guided us, nuraddu ila aqabina, as the words are, it actually means that after God has guided us, that is, if before this they have remained in error, they could have had some excuse. However, what excuse will they present before God for any error that they now commit? Obviously, when the Prophet has not come to them, and they had they could have justified their error, but now that the Prophet has come to them and he is explaining the truth, the Quran has clearly said that what is the reason now? What excuse will they present? And then it is said that as far as a person is concerned who is left perplexed, as you can see in this verse, the actual words you can see is al-ard, which is land. However, in the presence of some indication, it can refer to a specific part of it. And here, since the parable of wandering about is stated, we can clearly see that actually the word fil ardi hayran is referring to the desert. And by devils, obviously devils from among mankind and jinn kind, both are referred to. And leaving people perplexed and wandering is described to them, because it is they who make the faith and morality of a person wander about to the extent that is mentioned in this parable. So it's a beautiful parable, that it's like a person who's being led astray by these devils and he's being left to wander in the desert, and it is as if it is they who make the faith and morality of a person wander about to the in the way which has been mentioned here. So it has been negated right after by the words "Qul inna hudallahi huwal huda wa umirna linuslima lirabbil alamin." That real guidance is the guidance of God. Viewers, we have to understand that the Quran has repeatedly said this, and in not so many words, without mincing words, that God's guidance completes the guidance that we already have. God has guided us with our intellect, with our conscience, and of course in our instincts. So this is something that every human being is born with. And over and above that, there are certain things in which our intellect might fall short. For example, how to connect with God. What is the extent? What is the way? What is the methodology? So it is here that Wahi comes and complements the innate knowledge that we have. So this guidance is the guidance which is given by God. No other person can provide this guidance. He has created us and He is the one who can guide us. وَأَنْ أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّقُوهُ وَهُوَ الَّذِي إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ. And the second thing, which is, and have been directed, be diligent in the prayer and fear Him, because it is He before whom all of you shall be gathered. So once again, the diligence in the prayer, which is mentioned here, obviously also needs our attention, that we have to be very mindful of the prayer. We should focus our attention in the prayer. We should try our best that we not let our thoughts wander away in the prayer. We are punctual in the prayer. One of the ways to keep our attention focused is to slightly utter the words so that we can hear those words. And when we say something in our heart, our attention can wander more. But when we say something with our lips, then it is likely that the words that we are hearing will make us concentrate on them. Obviously, it goes without saying that we must understand the meaning of the prayer, whatever we are uttering in the prayer. And then we have also discussed this a number of times that the Almighty, through His Prophet, has guided us and given this is option that as far as the prayer is concerned, it can be read out, it can be recited, it can be offered in our own language, parts of it. So except for Surah Fatiha and the surah that we read after it, and before that Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamida, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, except for these five utterances, all the other utterances of the prayer can be said in our own language, in any language that we choose, and in any words that we have regarding glorifying God or thanking Him and expressing our gratitude towards Him, as well as making us any supplication before Him. So this gives us a lot of incentive and at the same time focus in the prayer. So وهو الذي خلق السماوات وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق ويوم يقول كن فيكون قوله الحق وله الملك يوم ينفخ في السور عالم الغيب والشهادة وهو الحكيم الخبير. And it is He who has created the heavens and the earth in all truth. On the day when He says, let the day of judgment be, so it shall be. His word is certain to materialize. The day when the trumpet is sounded, sovereignty shall only belong to Him. He has knowledge of all the unknown and the manifest, and He is all wise and all knowing. Again, something which has been expressed in the Quran at a number of instances, that when the day of judgment and the time of the day of judgment is going to come, the Almighty does not need to do anything. All that He needs to do is utter His command of kun, which is be, and it shall be, it shall materialize. Qawlul haq, which is that we have to also give this understanding that it will be the truth. It shall be something that everything, it is something that's going to materialize as the truth. The day when the trumpet is sounded, وَلَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَيَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي السُّورِ, which means that the time when the trumpet is sounded, عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ, He is someone who knows what is hidden and what is known. Of course, this is the prerequisite for the day of judgment to create its judgment. The judgment that will be pronounced on the day of judgment will be because of the Almighty having full knowledge of what people have done in the past. وَهُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْخَبِيرُ, He is all wise, and therefore He will mete out justice in the best way, and He's all knowing, so there will be no omission on His part. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ آزَرَ أَتَتَّخِذُ أَصْنَامًا آلِهَةً إِنِّي أَرَاكَ وَقَوْمَكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. Now from here begins a very important part of the surah, in which the famous argument of Abraham is cited before the people who were, of course, polytheists. They were mushrikun, and so the Almighty has, through His Prophet Abraham, tried to guide them. And this is a very important thing that we have to understand. So it says, narrate to them the incident of Abraham, and he said to Azar his father, have you made idols as your deities? I am seeing you and your people in open error. In this way we would make Abraham observe the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, so that he may conclusively convey the truth to his people and also become among those who have full conviction. So obviously this is something which the Quran has said in a very vehement way, that as far as the mention of the prayer is concerned, and as far as the details are concerned, this is something which has to be understood at the very outset, that Tawheed or monotheism is something that is found in our own intuition, in our own instincts, and it is only when we distort them, it is only when we do not pay heed to them, does this polytheism or the creed of polytheism arise. And before that, we all know that human beings have been created in a way that they are absolutely born on fitrah, as the Quran has said, that on the occasion when we know that in Surah Araf it is cited that a commitment was taken from all the souls, and a pledge was taken that Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And everyone said, Bala, yes you are. So as you see that from here onwards, other prophets are also mentioned besides Abraham. But Abraham has been specially mentioned because both the Ishmaelites and the Israelites, the two branches of Abraham's progeny, regarded him to be their noble ancestor and leader. Both of them also claimed that the religion they followed was inherited by them from Abraham. We do know that, as the words say when he said to Azar, that a study of Jewish literature shows that Abraham's father was not merely an idol worshipper. So, as you can see, is qala li abihi Azar. When Abraham talked to his father Azar, he was not merely a worshipper. In fact, what we know from Jewish history is that Abraham's father also built, made, solidified, and sold idols. So he was like an idol maker. And contrary to its general style, the Quran especially cited the name of Abraham's father, probably because it wanted to settle the difference between the Jews and the Christians about his name. We know that there is a discrepancy between the Jews and the Christians regarding the name. Whatever that discrepancy is, we are not fully sure of. But it seems that it's not the style of the Quran to take the name unless there is some confusion about the name. So it seems that the name of Abraham's father, Azar, has been taken so as to settle the difference between the Jews and the Christians. And Kazalika Nuri Ibrahim, that we would make Abraham observe the kingdom of the heavens and the earth so that he may conclusively convey the truth to his people. Now, again, this is something we have to understand, that it is this observation of God's dominion, his kingdom, through which God blessed Abraham with the reasoning through which he conclusively communicated and conveyed the truth to his people. The reasoning is actually mentioned further ahead, and this sentence actually acts as a prelude. So Abraham observed every single leaf of every tree, every speck of the earth, and every star of the heavens of this kingdom in a manner that he was able to have a true comprehension, a correct comprehension of God. And as far as deliberation in God's kingdom is concerned, we know that as scientists, he reflects on the creation of the heaven and the earth. However, he does this by making his own self or his limited environment as its focal point. He is only keen to see his immediate benefit. So he does not try to reach the facts that could divert the attention from the immediate benefit he seeks. He looks at the blossoming rose of an orchard to make sweet sugar or to derive benefits from it by making some other product. After this, he does not care to look beyond what he has observed. He does not care to look beyond to observe the wisdom, mercy, and providence of the Creator in the beauty, majesty, splendor, and fragrance of the flower. He is not able to become so overwhelmed at this observation so as to be overcome with the beauty and the majesty of the Creator who actually made the flower. The fact is that for a man of insight, for a person of insight, it is this aspect of a flower which is more attractive. He ponders over the question that if the purpose of a flower was to produce nectar, what then was the need for Providence to carve out such captivating patterns and designs on the petals of the flower? I mean, if the use was limited, why this beautification? Why this aesthetic taste spread all over it? Surely this was done so that every petal of a flower could become a means to comprehend the Almighty. So this beauty, this elegance, this grace found in the flowers, in the orchards, in the gardens, it points to the fact that the Almighty wants us to reflect and reach this conclusion. So the words which with this verse ends is وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُقِينِينَ, so that Abraham can have full conviction. And obviously, the conviction which is mentioned is a very higher status than belief itself. So belief is a general thing which can be acquired by any upright person, even through his own intuition. But conviction is acquired by reflection, deliberation, giving due diligence, and by observing and having knowledge of God's kingdom. There's no upper limit to this conviction. So we see that as we go along later on in perhaps verse 84 or something, somewhere in that region, the words are "Narfa'u darajatim man nasha." We raise ranks after ranks of whomsoever we desire. This is what the Almighty says, pointing to its high status. When this conviction is added to belief, its benefits become transitive and at times makes mountains and deserts resound with its blessings. Such is the extent and nature of this conviction. And now we will see the whole process as has been described in the next few verses. What was that guidance that was given to Abraham, and how he conclusively was able to convey the truth. So it goes from here. فلما جن عليه الليل رأى كوكبا قال هذا ربي فلما أفل قال لا أحب الآفلين فلما رأى القمر بازغا قال هذا ربي فلما أفل قال إن لم يهدي ربي لأكونن من القوم الضالين. So one day, when night came upon him, he saw a star, and observing that the people were attentive, said, "This is my Lord." Then, at a similar instance, when the star faded away, he said, "I do not like these as gods, or those as gods who fade away." Then one day, when he saw the moon shining, he said, "This is my Lord." But when it also set, he said, "If my Lord does not guide me, I shall be among those who go astray." فلما رأى الشمس بازغة قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر فلما أفلت قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون. Then one day, when he saw the sun shining, he said, "This is my Lord, he is the greatest." But when it also set, he, while addressing his people, said, "My people, I disown all those whom you regard as God's partners." And then the words beautifully said are, "Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lillazi fatara as-samawati wal arda hanifa wa ma ana min al-mushrikeen." I have turned myself dedicatedly to him who has created the heavens and the earth, and I am certainly not among the polytheists. So you can see that this is the mention of the argument which Abraham derived from the heavens and the earth. The previous verse says that we showed Abraham the dominion of the heavens and the earth. And when Abraham reflected on those heavens and the earth after observing God's kingdom in them, and then he presented, of course, his insights before the people. The line of reasoning here is that what people worship are themselves subservient, bound by their fate, and subject to God's laws and directives. None of these things can defy in the slightest way these laws and principles. So if you look at the ultimate conclusion that I do not like those as gods who fade away. So this was the real point which Abraham wanted to make. But giving due regard to the temperament of his people, he adopted a gradual sequence. So initially, he uttered the first of his statements to himself in a gathering, and this was reassuring to his star worshipping people, who reckoned that a person who was so averse to their idols was perhaps getting ready to accept them. So remember, he said, "Haza Rabbi, this is my Lord." But after making this comment before his nation, he remained silent for some days. Then, on another occasion, on one morning, when he saw that the stars had disappeared, he again addressed himself while intending to convey it to others. Remember, he was speaking to himself. He was not talking to others, but others were listening. And what did he say? He said, he did not consider those who disappear to be gods. So how can those who set and rise and set be God? They have to be in one place. They cannot set. The implication was that after their rising, they should also see their setting, his nation, and they bear witness by their very existence that they abide by the law they are subjected to. In other words, this rising and this setting tells us that the sun and the moon and the stars, they are subject to the law of some superior deity, and that is God, of course. And how could a person of insight make these heavenly bodies who rise and set at a particular time as God? Because they are, all these heavenly bodies, they are pursuing a particular course and they are subservient to a greater law. This status was only befitting to someone who was ever living, instrumental in bringing others into existence, who was there forever and would remain forever. And if you look at the words that if my Lord does not guide me, I shall be among those who go astray, it seems that a further step was taken by Abraham in his teaching. And it does not merely become evident that those that set or fade away are not worthy of being worshipped. What becomes evident is that to make deities out of objects that set or fade away is open error. What becomes further evident is that this error is not small. It is a matter of great sorrow and yearning. Moreover, it also becomes evident that the source of guidance is God alone. If He does not provide guidance, people can be misled by going after things on their face value. Since all these statements were uttered by Abraham, remember, he's speaking to himself and he's speaking in a way that other people are listening. So there was no reason for those who overheard them to get offended. This is a very specific style of preaching. You're talking to yourself, other people are listening, and you're not offending other people through the evolution that is occurring in your own arguments. In fact, those among them who had even a slight ability to reflect must have reflected on the fact that on the one hand was this person anxious to receive guidance, and on the other hand are we who are affixed to their place like a rock, which of course is something which cannot be comprehended. And in the last instance, when Abraham saw the son and he said, "This is the greatest. This is my Lord, he is the greatest." It is quite evident that this was an expression of sarcasm and derision from him. It's not that he was saying that he's the greatest in the sense that he was acknowledging the greatness. It was more of sarcasm. And this is a specific feature of Abraham's temperament. He would communicate his message to others through various styles without annoying them. And this included stating something which has two meanings: gradually leading his adversaries to an answer and employing polite humor as well. This style can also be seen in a sentence which he uttered after smashing the idols. Remember, there's an incident in which he smashed the idols, and he said, when someone said that who smashed them, he said, "Ask the bigger one that is right in front of you." So the various styles and forms of reasoning and methodology adopted by prophets of God are all very natural and based on human traits. At times, a pause, which apparently is a stoppage, is instrumental in carrying us through 1,000-mile journey. You say something and you stop and pause. Give the other people the chance to reflect, and it carries them through 1,000-mile journey, just one instant. And affectionate sarcasm. Remember, it's more of an affectionate sarcasm, which is sarcasm on the face of it surpasses 1,000 arguments. And finally, when Abraham said, "Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lillazi fatara as-samawati wal ard," so his statements in gradual progression without addressing his people came to this pinnacle, this conclusion. It is at this juncture that Abraham turned to them directly and declared his faith. This was the pinnacle of his argument. Initially, he was talking to himself, but now he said, "Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lillazi." The conviction referred to earlier is expressed here. Every word of it tells us the emphasis and stress with which this declaration has been made. After the setting of the sun, when the reality of their greatest deity became evident, it was the best time to present his invitation to them. It was the most effective time to point out the baselessness and intransience of those who regarded them to be deities. So Abraham chose this moment very accurately. The gist of his speech was only, can be said that only the creator of the heaven and the earth could be regarded as a deity. The person could consign himself to such a being only. What could those who themselves were subservient and compliant to the laws of the universe give others? And why would anyone consign himself to them? So, together with this declaration about monotheism, it was equally essential to declare that a people or a believer, that a person or a believer disowned polytheism, and he could never be among the polytheists. So again, a beautiful parable from the Quran, the way it has been presented. وَحَاجَهُ قَوْمُهُ قَالَ أَتُحَاجُّونَنِي فِي اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانِي وَلَا أَخَافُ مَا تُشْرِكُونَ بِهِ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ رَبِّي شَيْئًا وَسِعَ رَبِّي كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا أَفَلَا تَتَذَكَّرُونَ. His people started to argue with him on this. He replied, "Do you argue with me about God even though He has guided me? I do not fear those who you regard as His partners. Indeed, unless my Lord wills something, my Lord's knowledge encompasses all things. Then will you not pay attention?" So again, I do not fear those who who you regard as partners. It is evident from this sentence that instead of responding to his argument, Abraham's people or Abraham's nation, they started to intimidate him through their superstitions. And here it is Abraham's answer to these threats. What could be these threats? So, since polytheism is based entirely on fear and superstitions, for this reason his people started to threaten him in various ways, some of which were that if they declared their acquittal of these deities, they would be seized by them, these deities. These deities would inflict them with blindness, make them physically handicapped, strike them with lightning, and give them a painful death. So all these were their beliefs. So, as the Quran has said, that Abraham clearly said, unless my Lord wills something. This means that this is an exception meant to express trust in God. The implication is that whatever the Prophet is saying is based on God's trust. However much his intention be pure and determination be strong, they can only materialize with the grace of God. Every path has its own trials and tribulations, and a believer cannot succeed in them without God's help. So, and then it said, وَكَيْفَ أَخَافُ مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُوا أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And how can I fear what you ascribe as partners to God, when you are not afraid of ascribing partners to him, for which he has not sent down any sanction to you? So tell me, which of us two factions is more worthy of peace and comfort, if you know? Clearly, this is something which the Quran has said a number of times, that the Almighty has not sent down any sanction in this regard. They must fear God's anger and wrath because they ascribe partners to him without any sanction. This is what the Quran is called iftara Allah. They fabricate lies about God, and hence this is one of the sins, and this is the only sin about which the Quran has said that it would be unforgivable if it is done deliberately. الذين آمنوا إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. I have turned my face dedicatedly to him who has created the heavens and the earth, and I am certainly not among the polytheists. Once again, Abraham has said something in a very, very explicit way, that I turn towards God devotedly without any chance of being led away, and I am not in any way a polytheist. وحاجه قومه قال أتحاجونني في الله وقد هداني ولا أخاف ما تشركون به إلا أن يشاء ربي شيئا وسع ربي كل شيء علما أفلا تتذكرون وكيف أخاف ما أشركتم ولا تخافون أنكم أشركتم بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا فأي الفريقين أحق بالأمن إن كنتم تعلمون. So, and then it is said, الذين آمنوا الذين آمنوا ولم يلبسوا إيمانهم بظلم أولئك لهم الأمن وهم المهتدون. In reality, peace and comfort are for those who accepted faith and did not contaminate their faith with oppression, and only they are guided. Obviously, once again, the Quran has made it explicitly clear that as far as those are concerned, and peace and comfort and this calmness of the mind is only for those who accepted faith and they did not contaminate their faith with oppression. Lam yalbasu imanahum bizulmin ulaika lahumul amn wa hum muhtadun. And it is only they who are guided, and their faith, of course, they did not contaminate their faith with any sort of pollution, with any sort of oppression, and they are the guided ones. So we come to an end to today's session here with this verse 82. Inshallah, we'll be continuing the literal and idiomatic translation after a small session of Q&A with you. And inshallah, next week we'll be continuing with this discussion, because this is an ongoing paragraph and an ongoing passage.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. What a powerful, powerful verse it was today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I see Ammar Rasooli has a question. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
Wa alaikum assalam.
That's all very impactful verses. It also tells us what an important figure in religion Hazrat Ibrahim was.
Correct.
And what convictions he had and what tact he had, and also what kind of a relationship he had with God, a very personal kind of a relationship. But Dr. then the question that comes to my mind, and to my untrained mind, it is a bit of a troubling question, that even after this kind of a relationship with God and this kind of a belief, yet Hazrat Ibrahim asked for proof of resurrection after, how it will happen in the hereafter, that you will raise the dead. And I want you to show me. So, my question is, did that must have made God unhappy? That question and sort of that demonstration, that the request for a demonstration must have made God unhappy. And also, our beloved Prophet Hazur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as far as my understanding is concerned, never asked for this kind of a proof or any other proof from God that yes, I believe I am a messenger. You have sent me Hazrat Jibrail to relay this message, but can you give me some proof? So is it not odd? Yet we, as ordinary humans, uh, uh, are expected to believe, like the Quran says, that we believe while we have not seen. If I am remembering the words correctly. So this is my confusion and my question regarding this matter. Thank you.
Okay. So you see, you need to reconsider the verses in which Abraham had said that he would like a sign or a proof. Remember, it's the words, the exact words in Surah Baqarah, where his request ends is "Liyatma'inna qalbi," so that I can receive assurance. So as far as conviction was concerned, as far as reasoning was concerned, he was fully, he was fully convinced. It's like the heart receiving full assurance, or the need for the heart to be more sort of being satisfied on the truth, which made Abraham put up this request to God. It was not something in which he was telling God that I have some certain confusions, or maybe I'm not fully convinced, and I would like you to please explain it further, and I'd like you to see make me see some signs. That was not the case. The case was, if you look at the appropriate words of Surah Baqarah, that he had actually requested, "Qala Rabbi ja'alli ayah," that give me a sign, and then he said, "Liyatma'inna qalbi," so that I can give assurance to my heart. It's like a extra bit of thing, because I have to face Nimrod. Remember, he had to face a lot of opposition. If you look at Abraham's own life, the way he was structured, he was the only prophet of God, a mighty prophet of God, surely, who was asked to sacrifice, or maybe he thought so, that he has been asked to sacrifice his son, someone who was born to him after when he was 86 years old, according to the Bible. And when Abraham turned 14 and he was 100 years old, this supposedly was something that was to take place. So the life and the way Abraham himself conducted himself is something that you'll find was full of trials and tribulations. And again, this is something which the Quran has mentioned. And when he said that the Almighty actually tested Abraham through various ways and means, and the words of the Quran are فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ وَإِذِبْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ جَلْ وَإِذِبْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. And remember when God tested Abraham through a number of ways, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ, and he proved himself to be equal to it. So remember, these are the trials of Abraham through which he was passing. He was facing his own nation, who were, of course, after his life, and he had to migrate from that nation. It was destroyed, as we know from Surah, from Quran as well. So it was in this background that Abraham said, "God, I know that you are there. I know the day of judgment, but just to receive assurance, I would like an extra bit of pat on the back, so to speak, from you." So I think this should be understood in that particular background.
Part of my question was, did Hazur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ever ask for any such assurances in his life? Do we know of any such incident? And
I think there are instances, and if you look at the Quran, you'll find that the Prophet has been assured a number of times, and this assurance is in words. And because you see, prophets of God are human beings; they are not superhumans, and as human beings, they get dejected. They feel this dejection is maybe because they are falling short. So, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ is a verse in Surah Taha, in which the Almighty is giving him this assurance that, remember, if you are after these people and they are not professing faith, you don't need to just kill yourself going after them. You just need to do the needful. So this assurance, whether the Prophet asked it or not, that is something that we can discuss. But the Almighty has continued to give this assurance to his prophets of God. And in the Quran, you'll find these numerous instances, a lot of times, that the Prophet is being said that if you're, and I'm talking about the Meccan surahs, that if your nation is not accepting faith, if they are persecuting you, then just wait. فَاصْبِرْ لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ. Wait for the verdict of your God to arrive. And until that time, لَا تَكُنْ كَصَاحِبِ الْحُوتِ. Don't become don't show that impatience as Jonah did. And then again in Surah Muzammil it says, "Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan saqila," that I'm going to burden you with a heavy word, of course, which was the Quran. And inna nashiyat al-layli hiya ashaddu wat'an wa aqwamu qila, again in Surah Muzammil, that in order to bear the brunt of your ministry, in which you're going to go through a lot of hardships, this weapon, I would say, of the tahajjud prayer has been given to you. So stand by night and pray, and this standing by night is going to help you and give you reassurance. So I mean, the whole of the Quran has a lot of things to say in this regard.
Shabana Ansari, please ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Wa alaikum salam.
डॉक्टर साहब, ये मतलब एक कितनी खूबसूरत इसमें पिक्चर, एक सीन नजर आ रहा है ना कि हजरत इब्राहिम कितनी इनक्रेडिबल शानदार शख्सियत थे कि वो किस तरह मुख्तलिफ मौके पे, कभी दिन में कभी रात में, मुख्तलिफ ओकेजन्स पे जो है वो मतलब इनडायरेक्ट लोगों से स्पीच है एक तरह से उनकी, और फिर उसके बाद आखिरी दिन जो है वो उनको जबरदस्त सेंटेंस, इन्नी वज्जहतु वजहा लिल्लज़ी फतर, मतलब बिल्कुल उससे बेजारी, मतलब तंजिया स्टाइल भी है उनको वो करने, मतलब एक डेडिकेटेड और इतनी शानदार पर्सनैलिटी लगते हैं। तो मैं यही सोचा करती थी कि ये एक ही सिटिंग में तो नहीं हो सकती ये सारी चीजें ना, तो ये दिन भी है, कभी दिन है कभी रात है, हाँ, तो कभी दिन है तो कभी रात है, तो जब भी जाहिर है कि जब वो गुरूब हो गए तभी उन्होंने वो जिक्र किया ना।
Obviously,
तो
obviously. This could not have been at the same
और
time.
यही बिल्कुल, तो और दूसरे ये कि इसी वजह से यानी इतनी उनकी पर्सनैलिटी इतनी शानदार थी अल्लाह की तौहीद और उसकी मोहब्बत में, कि अल्लाह ताला ने उनको कुरान में एक उम्मत भी कहा है ना, कि वो एक अकेले एक उम्मत की तरह थे।
Correct.
और दूसरे ये जो भाई अभी बात कर रहे थे सर, तो उसमें ये था कि वो वाली जो आयत थी जिसमें वो लोग कहते थे कि कोई निशानी लेके आए, तो उसमें जो एक है कि आप जमीन में सुरंग लगा लें या आसमान में रस्सी लगा लें, वो वाली बात भी इससे रिलेटेड है ना, मतलब इनडायरेक्ट तो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को नहीं कहा जा रहा, लेकिन कुरैश को कहा जा रहा है कि आप निशानियां, कुरान खुद एक बहुत बड़े, तो ये वाली जो बात है ये भी इनको मैं याद दिलाना चाह रही थी कि भाई को।
Basically, it's an indirect style of reasoning, right?
जी, इनडायरेक्ट स्टाइल। तो यही मुझे इसका कमेंट करना था कि ये बहुत ही खूबसूरत सीन, मतलब एक बहुत अच्छा महसूस होता है हज़रत इब्राहिम का ये देख के।
one of the most powerful passages of the Quran.
पावरफुल, बिल्कुल जबरदस्त किस्म का।
It truly is, Dr. Saleem. When you started with this passage, it's extremely powerful. Asif, please ask your question.
The verse 71 and the subsequent verses, they declare polytheism, idolatry, or associating partners with God as a grave sin. And obviously, Allah doesn't need our acts to sustain His supremacy. Definitely, the shirk must affect human attitudes and behaviors, and swaying acts at the individual level and at the collective level that result in failure in the test and trial of this worldly life. So, what were the attitudes and behaviors and actions of the addresses of the Prophet at that time that emanated from their being indulged in shirk and could be amended through cleansing them from shirk? I mean, if you can kindly elaborate these aspects.
What are the attitudes of the people or the response of the people on these verses?
Of the addresses to whom these verses are addressed. Obviously, they were required to abstain from shirk and to come to the tawheed. And the understanding is that the shirk basically affects the attitudes and behaviors that result in failure in the test and trial of this worldly life. So, how this manifested in their actions? What were those actions that could be mended through cleansing them from shirk?
I'm not sure if I fully understood, but if you are talking about the fact that what exactly was the response of the Prophet's nation, if that is what you're asking, then we know that they said that they'll not leave their ways, come what may, because as we know that they almost worshipped their forefathers, and they said that how can we negate our forefathers, and we will not in any way leave the way of our forefathers. If they have been worshipping more than one God, then they must have had their reasoning. We are only following them. So you see, it was stubbornness, it was arrogance on their part, and it was never the case in which they got intellectually convinced or they even bothered to use their intellect. Because the Quran continuously says that as far as the conception of one God is concerned, you don't need to go anywhere except to just look into your own selves. It is something that you are born with. And if you have a distorted nature, or it has become distorted for any reason, then obviously prophets of God are sent for this very purpose. They come and they argue and they discuss and they try to remove these misconceptions. But if you become stubborn and every time you say that we're not going to leave the way of our forefathers, then what else the prophets can do than to threaten them that if you continue with this without any justification, then you'll face the wrath of the Almighty. And this is what happened. So earlier on, we know in Surah Baqarah, when it is said that God has put a seal on their heart, and this was particularly the people of the book at that time, it was because of this very reason that they had become bereft of understanding any reasoning, because their hearts and their minds had become sealed as a punishment from God because they were not willing to use their intellect in reasoning. So God punished them by not making them even efficient enough to utilize this reasoning. They could have used this reasoning, but before this could happen, they were punished in this way. And this punishment, of course, is not something that they were born with. It was something that they deserved and became worthy of after not using their own sense and intellect in any way. This is the whole subject of the Quran. If you look at the Meccan surahs regarding the people, regarding the idolaters, and the Medinan surahs, if you look at the people of the book, that every time any reasoning would be presented to them, they would not answer reason with reason, or they would not comprehend any reason. All that they would say is that, well, the people of the book said that how can a prophet come from the lineage of Ishmael? And the idolaters would say that how can we leave our forefathers? So you see, both of them were affixed, they were fixated and stuck on certain beliefs. And that is what continuously emanated from them.
Their shirkiya beliefs, that culminated into certain actions. I'm specifically, what were those actions that were detrimental to the society and the
The
Quran?
action what you see, they became enemies of the Prophet. They waged war against him. Remember, when the Prophet migrated, it was the Quraysh who actually attacked the Prophet. It was more of a defense on his part in the first three battles. So the actions were not in any way taken in a positive way. They became reactionary, and they said that how can this person now come up and suddenly say that there's just one God? And when they saw that his fame was spreading in the whole of Arabia, they wanted to put him down. And we will see later on in Surah Ahzab that one of the ways that they adopted was to actually somehow bring his personal life into disrepute. So they created a lot of propaganda and tried to create mistrust between him and his wives, and try to actually humiliate his wives in the eyes of the people by doing various pranks. This is mentioned in Surah Ahzab. So when they thought that they could not check the Prophet through these wars, they took up this motive that they wanted to scandalize the private life of the Prophet. So you see, their response was that of aggression and somehow to bring down the Prophet at any cost.
Amar Sahab, please ask your question.
Thank you very much for allowing me a second question. Sir, very quickly, I have thought about your address of today, and while I was listening to the verses and your explanation, what was coming to my mind was that I am deeply inspired by these non-Muslim personalities who are very devoutly religious in their own traditions, but then later on in life, through their own journeys towards truth, they explore different religious traditions and then end up choosing Islam because they feel that this is the most natural one. And I want to read their stories and their journeys, and it's deeply inspiring to me. And so while listening to these verses, I understand that your explanation is a very logical explanation, that basically Hazrat Ibrahim was doing all of this as a tactful methodology to rein in these people who believed in other deities, but then sort of like flip the coin, as it were, on them. But is it also possible that in these verses are describing his own personal journey, where for a while he might have leaned towards thinking that yes, this sun might be a deity. This is you know, it provides warmth and life and all of that, but then came to the conclusion that no, it cannot be so, and then eventually ended up believing in, the Almighty.
Yes,
Later.
yes,
Is that possible?
this is a. I mean, this is the inference that some people have drawn, but this is not possible because you see, the verses start off. If you look at the initial passage before this whole argument of Abraham begins, that tilka hujjatuna atainaha Ibrahim, that we strengthened Abraham with the power of reasoning and gave him the style of argumentation that is going to be demonstrated right ahead. So basically, it was this style of argumentation which the Quran has already introduced earlier on, that he would take them gradually towards the truth, because these were the people who were very stubborn, and any head-on argument with them would have just resulted in them being, I mean, even they tried to kill Abraham, as we know, they tried to throw him in the fire, and that would be the case. So it was through very gradual reasoning. In Arabic, we call it as istidraj. Istidraj means something that you do gradually by not answering the question, any question, but by raising certain questions so that the adversaries come to the answer themselves. So the beginning of this passage tells us that this was the hujjat, this was the argument that the Almighty blessed Abraham with so that he could lead his people away from untruth. So the very beginning of the passage actually tells us that this was not a evolution of Abraham, not something that he went through himself and declared. It was his style of reasoning through which he wanted to make his people realize that this is something which is absolutely untenable. If you look at the passage, it starts off with the Almighty's assertion that this is the argument that we blessed Abraham, and then that argument comes later on.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Naima Afridi, please ask your question. I hope it's related to the passage.
Certainly.
Okay, so my question is that regarding Abraham, was the age was established by historian or scholars discuss that? What was the age when he was dialoguing with his father? And is this the same name? Like in Quran it says Azar, but in historical facts in Torah it says Tare. His name was Tare, his father name. So if you can elaborate a little bit more on
I think that is why that is one of the reasons that the Quran has specifically taken his name, so that any dispute could be settled. That is why, I mean, the Quran does correct the Bible, the Torah at many instances, and it does seem that there was a difference of opinion regarding his name. Otherwise, this is not the style of the Quran to take names. And precisely this is the reason that it seems that there was a debate regarding his exact name, which the Quran had to settle by naming him out of its own original style. And as far as the age is concerned, we are not very clear about that. But one thing that we know is that this happened in Iraq when he was living in Ur, and he had not yet migrated to Canaan, which is something that he did later on. So, and we know that Ishmael was born to him when he was 86 years of age, and by that time he had already migrated probably. So it does seem that it was maybe in his middle ages, maybe like 40 or 50 years of age. We don't know exactly, but it was before his migration to Canaan, and that is the time then when he, of course, was given a new mission to settle his people and to call his to settle his children, one in Palestine and the other in Arabia. That was much later in life. So that gives us a rough estimation that he must have been in his 50s, maybe, or 60s when this argument was taking place. So we can just go and finish off the literal and idiomatic translation. So starting off with with verse 71, it says, "Qul, say, anad'u, should we ask, min dunillahi, those who are other than God, ma la, that which, la, not, yanfa'una, benefits us, wa, and, la, not, yadurruna, or harms us." So this says that should we ask God about those things which can neither benefit us nor harm us? Wa nuraddu ala aqabina, wa, and, nuraddu, should we turn around our heels? Should we just back away? Aqab is, of course, your heel. So nuraddu ala aqabina would mean that should we just bounce back on our heels? Should we turn back on our heels? Ba'da, after, is, when, hadana, we have been guided, Allah, by God. So should we turn around our heels after we have been guided by God? And this would be kallazi, like the person, istahwathu, who was left bewildered, a shayateen, by the devils. fi in al-ard, the land, hayran, perplexed. So he was actually he was someone who was left perplexed, or who was left bewildered by the devils uh, in a way, in a land that was akin to a desert. As we can see, that word istahwatu it collocates with a desert, which means that they were wandering about like people do in deserts. Lahu, for him, ashabun, are companions, and even though his companions yad'unahu, they call upon him. So it is like describing this horrible situation in which a person is being led away by these devils and he's perplexed, and his people are calling him ilal huda, towards the guidance. Itina, come to us. So qul, ask, inna, indeed, hudallah, guidance of God, huwal huda, is the real guidance, wa, and umirna, we have been commanded, linuslima, to submit, lirab, to the Lord, al alameen, of the words. So it is, what is being said is that if you look at this from behind it, should we turn backwards even after God has given us guidance? Much like the person who is left bewildered in the desert by the devils, even though his companions, his associates, call him to the right path, and they say, "Come to us, etina." But then it is said, Inna hudallahi huwal huda, say that real guidance is God's guidance. Wa umirna linuslima li rabbil alameen, and we have been asked to submit to God, Lord of the worlds. Wa, and an, that, aqimus salah, we diligently adhere to the prayer. Wattaquhu, and fear him, fear God. Wa, and huwa, he, allazi, one, ilayhi, towards him, tuhsharun, they shall be gathered, or all of you shall be gathered. So it is then said that wallazi ilayhi tuhsharun, he is the one towards whom all of you shall be gathered. Wa, and huwa, he, allazi, the one, khalaqa, created, as-samawat, the heavens, wal ard, the earth, bil haqq, with the truth, which means with the purpose. And it is he who has created the heavens and the earth with the truth. Wa, and yawma, the day, yaqul, he will say, kun, be, fayakun, therefore it shall be. Day, then he'll ask the day of judgment to come into existence, and it shall come into existence. And that is what it shall happen. Qawluhu, his qawl, his word, al-haq, is the truth, or his word is certain to materialize, in other words. Which word? The word kun. When he will say things, or the day of judgment should happen, it shall happen, and his word is the truth, his word is certain to happen and take shape. Wa, and lahu, for him, al-mulk, the dominion. For him is the dominion. Yawma yunfakhu fis-sur, on the day the trumpet is sounded. Yawma, day, yunfakhu, sounded, fis-sur, the trumpet. So the day when the trumpet is sounded. Remember, qawluhul haq and walahul mulk, they are together. His is the truth, his word is to materialize, lahul mulk, and his is the sovereignty. His is the sovereignty, his is the dominion. And then we have the next part, yawma yunfakhu fis-sur. Remember the day when the trumpet is sounded. Alimul ghaib, he is the knower of the unseen, was shahada, and the seen. So he is someone who knows the unseen, and he knows everything which is visible. Wa, and huwa, he, al-hakim, the wise, al-khabir, the knowing. He is the all-wise and he is the all-knowing. Wa, and is when qala, said, Ibrahim said, li abihi, to his father, Azar, when he said to his father Azar, what did he say? Atattakhizu asnama, have you constructed asnam, which means idols, aliha, as gods? So have you made these idols as gods? Inni, indeed I, araka, see you, wa qawmaka, and your nation, qawma, nation, ka, your, and your nation, fi, in, dhalal, error, mubin, open. So indeed I see you and your nation to be in open error. Wa, and kazalika, in this way, nuri, we show Abraham, malakut samawat, we show him the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, malakut kingdom, as-samawat of the heavens and the earth, waliyakuna min al-muqinin, so that he can become amongst the people who have conviction. And there is a short suppression here so that he can conclusively convey the truth to them, which is just before waliyakuna. Again, this is the thing that I was just pointing out, that before what Abraham has said to his nation, this is what the Almighty has said, that in this way we make Abraham observe the heavens and the earth so that he can become amongst those who have conviction. Falamma, therefore, lamma, when, janna alayhi layl. So janna alayhi layl is an idiom which means when night fell upon him. When night fell upon him, ra'a, he saw, kawkaba, a star. When night fell upon him, he saw a star. Qala, he said, haza, this, Rabbi, my Lord. He said, this is my Lord. Fa, therefore, lamma, when, afala, it faded away. Qala, he said, la, not, uhibbu, I like, al-afilin, those who fade away. So when that star faded away, he said, I do not like those who fade away. Fa, therefore, lamma, when, ra'a, he saw, al-qamar, the moon, bazighan, shining. So when he saw the moon shining, qala, he said, haza, this, Rabbi, my Lord. So he said, this is my Lord. Fa, therefore, lamma, when, afala, it set or faded away. Qala, he said, la illam yahdini Rabbi. La illam means if not. Yahdini guides me. Rabbi, my Lord. La, indeed. Akunanna, I'll become. Min, from. Al qawm al people who have been led astray. So if my Lord does not guide me, I shall become amongst those who have been led astray. Fa, therefore, lamma, when, ra'a, he saw a shamsa, the sun, bazighatan, dazzling. And when he saw the sun dazzling, qala, he said, haza, this, Rabbi, my Lord. He said, this is my Lord. And then he said another word. He said, haza akbar, this is my Lord and this is the greatest. Fa, therefore, lamma, when, afalat, it set or faded away, qala, he said, Ya qawm, O my nation, inni, I, bari'um, I am acquitted, mimma, from that, tushrikun, you associate as partners with God. So when he saw that the sun had also set or had faded away, he said, O my people, I acquit myself from that you make partners with God. Inni, indeed I, wajjahtu, face, wajhi, my. So I turn my face, lillazi, towards the person, fatara samawat, fatara created, as-samawat, the heavens, wal ard, the earth. So wajjahtu would mean I turn towards, wajhi, my face. So I turn my face towards the person who has created the heavens and the earth. Hanifa, in a dedicated way, in a devoted way, such that I am focused on him only. So Hanif means a person who is focused. And obviously focusing here means focused to God. Wa, and, ma, not, ana, I, al mushrikeen, from amongst the polytheists, and I am not from among the polytheists. Wa hajjahu qawmuhu. Hajjahu, hajja means tried to argue. Qawmuhu, his nation. So his nation tried to argue with him. Qala, he replied, Atuhajjunani fillahi, do you argue with me about Allah, God? Do you argue with me about God? Waqad, and indeed he, hadani, has guided me. Wa, and la, not, akhafu, I fear, ma tushrikuna bihi, those you regard as partners. I do not fear those who you regard as partners. Illa an yasha'a rabbi shay'a, illa except an that yasha'a my Lord wants Rabbi my Lord shay'a anything. So I do not fear those you regard as his partners. I do not fear them. So indeed, except if my Lord wills something. Again, this is a sentence on the part that if God has other plans, that is something else. Otherwise, as far as I am concerned, I am one who do not regard any partners with him. Wasi'a Rabbi. Wasi'a means all embracing. Rabbi, my Lord. Kulla shay, everything. Ilma, with his knowledge. So, in other words, my Lord's knowledge embraces everything. Afala, do you not? Tatazakkarun, pay heed. So, do you not pay heed? Wa and kaifa how akhafu I fear ma ashraktum what you associate partners wa and la takhafuna you do not fear annakum that you ashraktum associate partners billahi with God. And what are those partners? Malam yunazzil bihi alaykum sultana. Malam, those who lam not yunazzil revealed bihi about them alaykum upon you sultana any proof. So, what is being said here is how can I fear what you ascribe as partners, as associates to God? But how can I do that when you yourself are those who are not afraid of ascribing partners to Him, when the fact is that He has not revealed any proof about these partners? So, how are you so bold that you do this? Fa, therefore, ayu which al fariqain, the two factions, ahak, more worthy of the truth, bil amn, with regard to peace and comfort. So, which of us two factions, فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقْ بِالْأَمْنِ, so which of the two factions is more worthy? Al-Haq, more worthy, bil-amn, of peace. So, which of the two factions is more worthy of peace? In kuntum ta'lamun, in if kuntum you ta'lamun, but knew. Allazina, so allazina means those who. Amanu, professed faith. Wa, and lam yalbasu, and did not mix up imanahum, their faith, bizulmin, with any oppression. So those who professed faith and did not mix up their faith with any oppression, ulaika, it is they, lahum, for whom, al-am, peace, wahum, and they, muhtadun, are the guided ones. So what is being said here is that those who have professed faith and did not mix up or contaminate their faith with any oppression, the peace that you are asking for is for them, and they are the ones who are guided. So this finishes our literal and idiomatic translation also, and now we can take up the rest of the questions.
Shabana Ansari, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
डॉक्टर साहब इस्ताहवतहू का रूट वर्ड क्या होगा? और यहाँ पर जो हैरान अरबी और हैरान उर्दू का है, ये दोनों सेम नजर आ रहे हैं यहाँ पर, क्या एक ही है?
So hawa is istahawat's the root, ha, wa, and ya.
Okay.
And hayran, of course, is the same. Yes, hayran is the same. And hayran means perplexed.
ठीक, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I do not see any raised hands regarding questions to the passage. Does anybody have any questions regarding the passage? Because then we'll move on to off-topic questions. Okay, no more raised hands. Dr. Saleem, I have a chat question which is off-topic. Can I ask it then?
Yes.
As the terms mushrik, Momin, Muslim and Kafir are repeated many times, but the term non-Muslim is not a term of Quran. So what is the main difference between following these terminologies?
The main difference is the word kafir is primarily used for those people who have intentionally denied the truth. They know what the truth is and then they deny that truth. Because the people who were facing the Prophet, or the Prophet was facing these people, were the ones who had ultimately intentionally denied him. It was not that they had any confusion about him. So therefore, because the only form of non-Muslims that existed in his times were the ones who had deliberately denied him, and the Quran is actually trying to describe his ministry. So whenever this word is used, as the word al-kafir is used, remember it is used for those Christians or Jews or idolaters who have intentionally denied intentionally, deliberately, while knowing what the truth is. But today, we just cannot call anyone a kafir in the sense that we say that you are deliberately denying the prophetic message, because it could be out of confusion, it could be out of lack of understanding, it could be lack of information, it could be misinformation, it could be because of the acts of Muslims that they are drawn away from Islam. All these could be reasons. So the proper term today to address our brethren is non-Muslim. We just cannot call them kafir. Remember, this is a word which the Quran is reserved for people who were the adversaries of the Prophet himself, and about whom the Prophet was told that these are the ones who have intentionally denied you.
Okay, then Momin and Mushrik.
So, Momin and Muslim, I mean, Muslim is someone who submits to God, and Momin is someone who has faith. So, is like a degree above Muslim. Momin is one degree above a Muslim. So, a Muslim is just a person who is submitted to God. But when a person really submits and believes in God with his heart and soul and mind, then he's called a mu'min.
Okay, and then what about Mushrik, Dr. Saleem? That it also asks that.
Okay, so the word mushrik means someone who deliberately associates partners with God. He says that there is one, not one God. He believes in the creed of polytheism. There's no confusion about him. And the word polytheist is a word that can be a translation of the word mushrik.
Okay, Dr. Saleem. Jaka, please unmute your mic and ask your question now.
Sir, my question is, can we offer Friday prayers at school?
So, are you asking that would you like to conduct the Friday prayers in the school as a person,
Yes, yes.
and people will gather there as a result of that?
No, only teachers. Only teachers. We have at least 50 teachers there.
I suppose so. If that is the case, that there's no arrangement around your locality in your village, and there's no mosque, and you have to go maybe far away, then yes, you can organize the Friday prayer in the school, and you can declare the classroom or whatever hall that you have as a place of prayer for the Friday prayer.
Rafia, please ask your question.
That's my question is, God is almighty, all-knowing, kind, everything powerful. Uh, why did he create Shaitan? He could have destroyed him. If there was no Shaitan, we wouldn't be tempted. People wouldn't fall prey and do all these horrible things. So, and the Shaitan defied God right in front of him. He said, I will not listen to you. So, is there anything behind this? Maybe it's a wrong question, but it very often occurs to me.
So remember, temptation is not just through Satan. The Quran says that the Almighty has created temptations or allurements from two sources. One is our own nafs, our own soul, and the other is, of course, Satan and his progeny. So even if Satan was not there, we would still be lured by our own nafs, which of course is a form of trial. So remember, this world has been created for a big trial that we have to pass through. So it was in the scheme of God to let Satan be given this time and given this opportunity, because he wanted to test the mettle of us. He had already decided to do so through the nafs, through our own soul, that he would be when we would be tempted by our own soul. So he created another temptation, or a source of temptation, in the form of Satan and his progeny, to make this test a little more tough, so that we are rewarded even more for any any resistance that you put up.
I see. And I understand, because sometimes I feel God can do anything.
So I think he did this because he wanted the test to be an optimum test, and we should prove to be real good to pass this test. And that is, part of the test, that at times you have to go through a tough routine to prove yourself, to prove your mettle.
Geez, bit good say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti Sahab, please ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. So my question is about the enrollment of classes next year. I was enrolling classes. I didn't find any classes that belong to you. So how do we enroll or don't?
No, I have stopped teaching since a long time. So I do my own teaching, like the one that you're attending now. So the teaching that was being done on the platform of Mawrid or from GCIL, that I stopped, I think, a couple of years ago. And so this is the only two platforms on Saturday and Sunday that you can join. And I regard this to be as a service, as a teaching to anyone who wants to become a student.
Jazakallah khair. So it will continue then.
Yes, of course.
It will continue. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Thank you, Bhatti Saab, for your question. I had a question, Dr. Saleem. So, the five essential parts of the prayer, why is it that people can't, why can't just people just do that and be done with their prayer? Why do we have the additions or the, other aspects to it that are not.
So that we can express ourselves in our language. I mean, this is an opportunity that the five essential parts, the five essential utterances actually is the right name. Those five essential utterances are the ones that unite everyone. Wherever we go, everyone will be praying and having those utterances in common. But the other aspects of the prayer, or the other postures of the prayer to be more precise, they give us the opportunity to connect to God in our own language. And this is the beauty of the prayer, that it combines the Arabic, which is like a universal language wherever you go when you pray, with a local touch that you can just talk to God in your own language in instances or in postures in which reciting the utterance in Arabic is not essential. So I think it's a very eclectic mix.
So, the dua that we basically culturally have been taught to do after the namaz, that can be inside the namaz and.
Of course, that was the purpose. I mean, the attayat is nothing but a posture for your prayer, your supplication. You just can say anything that comes to your mind, and once you say salam, I mean, you can do additionally some more by raising up your hands. So that is, that was never the part of the prayer, and in fact, it was the recommendation that you make your supplications within the prayer, and that is why on one occasion the Prophet has said, "Ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah," and on another occasion he said, "Ad-du'a mukhul ibadah," that real worship is the dua, and the brain of the prayer is the dua. Mukhul ibadah means the brain of the prayer, or the brain of worship.
Okay. And Dr. Saleem, so Isaac was younger than Hazrat Isaac was younger than Hazrat Ismail. So he was born to
Yes.
Hazrat Ibrahim after he was like more than 100 years old?
Oh yes, that is what the Bible tells us, and that is what is corroborated by the Quran also. So we know that it was about when Ismail, was 14 years old when this sacrifice took place, and it was after Ismail's sacrifice, of course, that we know that this all.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Naushad Shafqat Sahab, please ask your question.
Sir, is it correct to say that after the Asr prayer, we cannot offer any other prayer like any Nafal prayer? And is the sajda also prohibited after Asr and between Maghrib?
That is not correct. I mean, you can offer any sort of prayer, including prostration, until the very time of sunset. There are certain ahadiths which seemingly prohibit the prayer after Asr, but if you collect all those narratives, you'll find out what the Prophet is trying to tell people is that don't pray very close to sunset, because in those times we know that people could delay the prayer after the Asr prayer and pray right at the time of sunset. That this was set as a precautionary measure, that when you know clearly well that the sun is still not set as yet and it is maybe in the path of its descent, that is fairly okay. But if you start praying right at the time of its descent and when it is setting, then that would not be correct. Otherwise, now, yes, go on.
But sir, I can start a prayer, offer the first rakat before sunset, and
Yes.
continue my prayer during sunset, according to what you earlier told
Yes.
us. Right.
So that
Thank
is
you,
what
sir.
we can do. At least the first rakat should be done when the sun is still not set.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So then, Dr. Saleem, just elaborating on the question that Dr. Naushad Sahab asked, it's a very short time then that we can't say our prayer in then, right?
Just the sunrise and sunset. These are
Yeah,
about
so
5 minutes each.
Yeah, so just short.
So
Okay.
that's all. That is, other than that, at all times we can pray. And even regarding sunrise and sunset, the Prophet has said, if you are in the haram, even at time of sunrise and sunset you can pray, because when you're in haram there is no chance of any polytheism. Remember, this directive is something that relates to polytheism, because polytheistic nations, they still worship, and they do worship the sun when it rises and when it sets.
Right. But then, Dr. Saleem, isn't Islam a religion of intention also? So my question is, if the intent is not that we are praying to the
Yeah.
sun, we are praying to God, then
Yes.
why does it matter?
Of course, you see, at times intention is also important, and at times similarity is also important as a precaution, that you never know when you can slip away and start doing things that even if it is a very remote possibility. So it's like being overly precautious, that we have been told that we should not, prostrate at the time the sun rises and sunset. So that there's a distinction between us and nations which are polytheistic.
Okay.
Sorry for interruption, but this is our third time. It's called the middle of the day. So what about that?
So that is a big misconception that has arisen as the Zawal time. People think that when it's midday, we should not pray. There is no such thing, and it has arisen because of a misconception, and that is that the Prophet, in Arabia, in Mecca and Medina especially, the summers were very hot. So on one occasion, the Prophet is reported to have said "Abrada Zuhr," which means cool down the Zuhr prayer, or offer it when the sun is a little more towards the right, so that it's not that hot. So it was basically a recommendation that in this hot weather you can delay the Zuhr to a later period, Abrada Zuhr, so that the climate cools down a bit. So this was conceived by people as if he was telling us that we should not pray on midday. It's not what his purpose was. It was just that it was just like giving us protection from the sun. That he, as an elder, was telling us that you don't need to pray right at the time of at midday, when the time of Zohr starts. You can delay a Zohr a little bit. And that is why Imam Malik, we know that he says that there is no such thing as Zawal. So this is something that you'll find amongst the Hanafites, the Hanafis more, and some of the other jurists. Otherwise, a person like Imam Malik, he says that I have spent my time in Medina and I haven't seen any companion or any follower of the companion doing such thing, because had it been a Sunnah, I am living in Medina, I would have found it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jazakallah.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Mansoor Ahmed Saab, please ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
सर मेरा सवाल गधे के गोश्त के बारे में है कि कुछ रिवायात मिलती हैं जिसमें रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की तरफ से उसके बारे में ममानियत साबित की जाती है, तो वो रिवायात किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर आपकी नज़र से गुजरी हैं, और जनरली उसके ऊपर क्या हुक्म है गधे के गोश्त के हवाले से?
जनरली देखिए, जो रवायात हैं वो गधे के गोश्त के बारे में नहीं है। वो तो असल में ये था कि ऐसा मालूम होता था कि माले गनीमत जो हाथ आया था उसको तकसीम, यानी उसके बारे में तकसीम से पहले लोगों ने उसे कंज्यूम करना शुरू कर दिया था, उसको इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया था। तो प्रॉफिट ने वो देगें उलट दी थी जिसमें वो गोश्त पकड़ा था, और आपने कहा था कि ये ऐसा हमें नहीं करना चाहिए। तो वो एक बड़ा ख़ास मौका था जिसके नतीजे में लोगों ने समझा कि जैसे वो उसकी हुर्मत का फ़ैसला दे रहे हैं। गधे के बारे में ये एक यूँ समझ लीजिए कि इसके बारे में कोई सरी हुर्मत नहीं है, कोई एक्सप्लिसिट हुर्मत नहीं है। ये इंसान के ज़ौक़ पे छोड़ दिया गया है। अगर आप खाना चाहें तो आप खा सकते हैं, कोई हराम चीज़ नहीं है।
थैंक यू सर।
Naushad Saab, do you have another question?
Yes, on the same topic, Dr. So also it would be that after offering the Fajr prayers, one could offer any other prayer before the time of sunrise. And the time,
Yes.
Is it 5 minutes or 10, 15
It is about,
minutes? Right?
yes, it is about a couple of minutes. I mean, like if the sunrise, let's say, is 5 a.m., you can go right up to 4:59 a.m., I would say.
Right, sir. And later, the period during
I
which
think
we
should wait for, because the sunlight reaches us in 7 minutes from the sun. So I think the complete cycle would be finished after 5 or 7 minutes.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I do not have any raised hand at this time. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and ask. We have a few minutes left. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the session. जी मंसूर साहब, क्वेश्चन सवाल कर लीजिए।
सर इसी जो पिछला सवाल मैंने किया, इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में निकाह मुता के बारे में कहा जाता है कि वो किसी खास इल्लत या वजह के बिना के ऊपर किया जाता था, जो तारीख में मिलता है। तो वो मामला क्या है? अगर आज लोग कुछ इज्तिहाद करते हैं, कहते हैं कि हमें भी in some circumstances वो ज़रूरत है, तो क्या वो फिर कर सकते हैं इस तरह से?
नहीं, ऐसी कोई चीज़ है नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के ज़माने में तो बिल्कुल नहीं थी। बिल्कुल शुरू ही में जो मक्की सूरतें हैं, सूरह मारिज और सूरह मोमिनून, दीज़ आर 2 मैकन सूरहs, और मक्की सूरतों में कह दिया था कि निकाह के अलावा कोई और ज़रिया नहीं है किसी ताल्लुक के कायम होने का। निकाह के अलावा और कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। ये मुता का जो है ये प्री इस्लामिक अरेबिया में कॉन्सेप्ट था। इसी वजह से जो ताल्लुक था उसको मुता कहते थे, और जो खातून थी उसको ममतुआ कहते थे, और निकाह के ज़रिए से जो खातून इज़्दवाज में आती थी उसको मनकूहा कहते हैं। तो मनकूहा और ममतुआ में यही फ़र्क था कि ममतुआ तो महज एक प्रोस्टिट्यूशन की शक्ल थी, यानी वो तो सिर्फ जिस्म फरोशी कह सकते हैं। निकाह के बारे में कुरान मजीद ने कहा है कि द ओनली लेजिटिमेट वे फॉर अ पर्सन टू सेटिस्फाई हिज सेक्सुअल अर्ज इज थ्रू द इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ मैरिज। इसके अलावा और कोई चीज़ जायज़ नहीं है।
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. So I have a question, chat question. Is there any emphasis on the punctuality of prayer? Can I say my Zohar right before Asr Azan?
Yes, I mean, you can do that. As far as you're following the stipulated time period, I mean, you can look up a chart in Google a chart of your own city. It will tell you when the start of Zohar, when Zohar starts, and it will tell you when Asr starts. So anywhere between the start of Zohar and the beginning of Asr, you can offer your Asr prayer. A Zohar prayer, sorry.
Okay. Naushad Saab, you have another question? Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Sahab, is there the concept of qaza namaz? What do you have to say about that after that?
Are you referring to qaza as in if you've left a lot of prayers in your life and now you suddenly realize that you need to...
No, sir. No, I'm asking about prayers which
which are missed. I mean, qaza just means that something that you were not able to do, you should make up for that. Just as we say that the fast that you missed because of illness or for some other reason must be made up in the later part of the year. In a similar way, if you have missed a prayer, maybe you overslept, maybe something happened, maybe it could be an operation or ill health. So whatever prayers you have missed, they have to be made up, and all these made up prayers are called qaza prayers.
Right, sir. Thank you.
So, Dr. Saleem, just expanding on the question that was asked in the chat. So, for Fajr, can we say it till Zuhar time, because that's a very long period?
No. Fajr time is up till sunrise. That is the only difference. That the rest of the prayers, they go right up to the next prayer except Fajr. The time of Fajr begins with dawn and ends at sunrise.
It was a wonderful session, Dr. Saleem. Thank you for everything, and inshallah, we'll see everybody next Saturday with another session of Quran. Thank you, Dr. Saleem.